Sales tax exemption.
Yeah, we did not pay sales tax on that.
I'm eating his chocolate, so if you want to get back here, I'll.
Tax-free chocolate.
Yeah.
Tastes better.
Does, that was magical. There'd be a sin tax on top. Oh, that was very hard to bring.
Are
you ready, Susan?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna call the regular city council meeting of October 4th, 2023 to order. Call to order and please rise and join me in the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And the roll.
Mayor Ellison,
Here.
Tom Baylor is absent, Kathy Sherman,
Here.
Casey Kinsman,
Here.
Wendy Rainey,
Here.
Ann Schaefer is absent, Kristen Carpenter, here, and Ken Jones.
Here.
That's the form of council.
And approval of the regular agenda. Do we have any additions, changes? Hearing none, seeing no objections. Disclosures of conflicts of interest in ex parte communications. Anybody have anything to declare? Seeing none. Communications by petitions from visitors. And are the auditors? can speak?
I have him under the,
Okay, got it. Audience comments regarding agenda items. Anybody in the audience want to speak?
I don't have an agenda item, but can I come up and say what I'm concerned about? Or not?
At the end of the meeting, that's the time set for that, yeah. Yeah. Chairpersons and representatives of boards and commissions. There we have Mr. Jenka.
Evening, Mayor, Council, David Janka, Box 1231, and the Cordova Harbor, in the North Harbor, today. I represent the city of Cordova, the Prince William Sound Regional Citizens Advisory Council, and 2 weeks ago, we had our fall board meeting in Homer. Next, they rotate the fall meeting around to the different communities, and next year will be Kodiak, and 2025 will be Cordova. Looking forward to that, that'll be fun.
Yeah.
So it was a day and a half of board meetings and then a full day of long-range planning, which I found very painful. So unfortunately, there were a lot of people there that have done those before, got some work done. But we had some really great updates from some of the agencies and Alyeska as well. First I thought, oh, was it just me? Because it's my third meeting, but still, they seem particularly well done, you know, from ADEC, Alaska Department of Environmental Conservation, as well as Alyeska. And I had to ask staff, so what did you think of those? And those are about the best ones we've had in a lot of years. So that was really, really nice to see as far as some of the funding and staffing for DEC and how upfront Alyeska was about addressing some of the safety concerns in our report earlier in the year and a fire that they had there this summer. And things like that. That was very good. We also had updates from the shippers and the pilots. We're looking at, I can't remember, it was 8 to 10 foreign flag tankers are going to be calling on the terminal. And I was concerned, but it was good. ConocoPhillips and Polar Tankers have some tankers are going to be out in dry dock and for inspections, and they have some gaps in there, and then they charter some of these tankers, but they reviewed in quite detail how they vet the tanker and the company that operates it, and the pilots address that they're going to have enough people to cover this. And so there's a lot of concern in our port operations vessel traffic system is following that pretty closely, because a lot of it's sometimes a miscommunication with language, especially when you've also got foreign crews on cruise ships out there as well with foreign crew tankers. So we're hoping that there isn't going to be any problems with that. There was one thing that came up. I do have, just want to remember, there is a 4-page highlight of the board meeting, and Susan printed out some copies over there, and I snagged some of the RCAC publications too, and they're over there, a year in review, and then and now 30th anniversary, that'll be replaced in a later next after the first of the year to a 35-year one. As well as stories from the council, sort of excerpts from that book they produced a few years ago. But it is an 18-member board, soon to be a 19-member board, are working on putting in a permanent recreation seat. Used to be a recreation seat, that organization dissolved, and then the Coast Guard made it an issue with when they were recertifying the council earlier this year, and legal counsel seemed to think that we didn't have to, but the Coast Guard is questioning it. We'll go ahead and get another seat. So that's moving along. Another issue is Crowley is going into some joint venture of some sort. That's an ongoing watch what they're up to with that. There was a letter approved by the council. It doesn't really I don't think it comes through very much on the Coast Guard is replacing their island class cutters, which there is one in Valdez, but in their replacing the island class with these newer Sentinel class cutters, they were going to drop the one in Prince William Sound just for cost effectiveness and things like that. So there was a resolution to support the class cutter, but in Valdez. So there's a handful, including myself, who didn't like being put in the spot of picking one community over another for a cutter. It should have just been straight supporting maybe a cutter. There was some talk by some of the fishermen about just what we need, a new big heavy-handed military oversight vessel kind of stuff. And my own personal feeling is the tens of millions of dollars that's gone into the Coast Guard in Valdez, and they have an unsecure airline that flies into there. Doesn't seem like that money is doing much to protect from something post 9/11. But anyway, about a half dozen of us just voted abstained. I'm not sure if that was the right thing to do. I'm asking about what that was right or not. I didn't like the way that was held, but the resolution did pass for that. And we had a few reports, the winter bird report that Ann Schaefer's worked on, the weather buoys that Rob Campbell has worked on, and a few other, another report about oxygenated hydrocarbons. It's amazing how long we've been dealing with crude oil, and we're still figuring out what it is and what's in it and how it affects us. It's unbelievable what how little is we're learning. But like I say, I did grab some of those nice glossy things over there, as well as the 4-page review, which I think was emailed to you. It'll probably be in the next meeting's packets as well. So if there's any questions.
Thank you. I enjoy reading the summaries of the meetings, and yeah, and it's interesting to hear your backstory on the Coast Guard.
Yeah, that was, I'm not sure on that. They've got all these safe boats, those fast little boats that seem to do a lot of the work. And why a big, that cutter would be needed there, since they've had one there. I don't see it out very often. So, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks, Ted.
Student council report, we have none. Approval of consent calendar.
I will call the roll on just those minutes that are in there. On the consent calendar, Wendy Rainey,
Yes.
Tom Baylor is absent, Kathy Sherman,
Yes.
Casey Kinsman,
Yeah.
and Schaefer is absent, Ken Jones,
Yes.
and Kristen Carpenter.
Yes.
The consent calendar is approved.
Thank you, Susan. So the minutes were in the consent calendar, consideration of bids, proposals, contracts, we have none. reports of officers. Mayor Allison, do you have something you'd like to contribute?
I don't think I have anything exciting enough for you guys tonight, so I'll just leave it at that.
We were looking forward to that. Okay, then we'll go to you, Helen.
Okay, thank you. I want to introduce Jim Newhouse, who is a principal with Newhouse Local, who has been performing our audit now for 2 years. This is the second. The audit was completed just a couple weeks ago. The document itself is online. It's substantial on length, obviously. Jim will give an overview of the audit. And with that, Jim, you are free to take over the screen to show your slides. For those who are following outside the room, his slides are included in your packet.
Well, first of all, I'll say good evening to everyone. And then I will be sharing my screen, hopefully. All right. So what I like to do, and I've done a few of these in my career. I really like to give a synopsis of the audit. Most boards or councils are pretty well informed, so they really don't want me to go too deep into the weeds on stuff. So, when I get done, if there are questions, please feel free to ask them. With that, I will start. Helen, are you able to see the?
Yes, we can see the
Okay.
screen.
Okay, good. Everyone wants to know what was the audit report, or what was the opinion on audit report? We have issued an unmodified opinion on the financial statements for the year ended 12/31/2022. That means there was no modification to the report. We also performed a federal single audit under the uniform guidance. The PILT was identified as the major program for that. Means we do a little more testing under that program. We've also issued an unmodified opinion on the schedule of expenditures of federal awards. And we also had a state single audit. We actually had to audit 2 programs under the state. The first one was the debt retirement, and the second one was the Porter Harbor project. One was over the threshold and one was below the threshold. Essentially, the state adopted the federal guidelines for major programs, or for us to audit as major programs. Essentially, we have to look at one over $750,000 and one under $750,000 if they're determined to be high risk, and we determined that the port project was a little higher risk than low risk. And under the state single audit, we also issued an unmodified opinion. Are there any questions on either the auditor's report on the financial statements, or the auditor's report on either the state or federal single audits? Okay, I'll jump in. In reviewing the financials, it looked like the enterprise funds had 2 funds that essentially had net losses. However, when you exclude the depreciation from their income statement, it gets them back in the black. Go and jump over here for a second, so that way you can see. The water and sewer fund both had net losses of $532,000 and $245,000 respectively. You add back in $604,000 for the water depreciation of equipment, and you get a net income. And same correspondingly with the sewer project of $440,000. Essentially, what that is, and I'm not sure if y'all are familiar with depreciation and how that's supposed to work. It's supposed to be a sinking fund, to where essentially a fund would replenish, potentially replenish capital assets as they mature, or as their useful lives expire. So essentially, what those funds what that depreciation is used for, or accumulated depreciation is used for, is to hopefully put money aside to identify new equipment purchases.
And I think one of the things that I just want to make you all aware of is we do not currently fund depreciation at 100%. Ops.
And most organizations that we deal with really don't, because a lot of it is grant derived. So therefore, you know, they essentially write grants for new equipment or new projects, and that equipment or the capital asset is included with those grants or budgeting purposes. Our responsibility as auditors, we are required to form and express an opinion about whether financial statements have been prepared by management with the oversight of the city council, are presented fairly in all material respects in conformity with generally accepted accounting principles and government auditing standards. We plan and perform the audit to obtain reasonable, not absolute, assurance about whether the financial statements are free of material misstatements, whether caused by fraud or error. Because of the nature of the audit evidence and the characteristics of fraud, we are able to obtain reasonable but not absolute assurance that material misstatements will be detected. We evaluate whether the city's controls sufficiently address identified risk of material misstatement due to fraud, and controls intended to address the risk of management override of other controls. We are responsible to communicate to you in writing all significant deficiencies and material weaknesses and internal control identified in the audit, and reporting to management all deficiencies noted during audit that are sufficient, important to merit management attention. It's kind of a mouthful. Essentially what that means is if there is something that rises to the level of a deficiency, we would actually probably have a separate meeting with y'all to let y'all know where what we found and where we found it and the circumstances are surrounding it. But since we did not have any noted deficiencies, there's no separate meetings. We are also responsible for conducting our audit in accordance with our professional standards, which there are quite a few. Management is responsible for adopting sound accounting principles, fairly presenting the financial statements conforming with generally accepted accounting principles and governmental accounting standards, establishing and maintaining effective internal control over financial reporting, identifying and complying that the city complies with laws and regulations applicable to its activities, making all financial records and related information available to the auditor, providing the auditor with a letter confirming certain representations made during the audit that include but are not limited to management's disclosure of all significant deficiencies, including material weaknesses in the design or operation of internal control that could adversely affect the city's ability to record, process, summarize, and report financial data, and acknowledgement of the responsibility for the design and implementation of programs and controls to prevent and detect fraud. The City Council is responsible for the oversight of the financial reporting process and internal control over financial reporting. Ultimately, the City Council is responsible that the buck stops with y'all, essentially. The city management and City Council are responsible for establishing and maintaining internal control to prevent, detect, and deter fraud, setting the proper tone and creating and maintaining a culture of honesty and high ethical standards. Our audit of the financial statements does not relieve you or management of your of your respective responsibilities. Essentially what it comes down to is an audit is good, but it's not going to detect fraud or potentially all errors that occur during the year. Just a side note, I read an article, this is probably 15 years ago now, that in 100 instances of fraud, approximately 10 were identified during the fraud or during the audit. The other 20, I want to say 25 to 35% were actually identified through employees, whistleblowers. When we do an audit, we don't do 100% of transaction testing. We identify accounts that we want to look at, and we make samples of those and test those correspondingly. It's not 100% transaction audit. You folks really wouldn't want to pay for that. And then no findings, significant matters, or issues were determined or found during the audit to incite the issuance of a comment to the council. This usually would be presented in the letter to the governing body. And I can jump around a little bit to the board letter and management letter if y'all would like. Is there any questions regarding the financial statements?
Councilman Carpenter.
I do have one question, Joe. I don't know if this counts as being part of the financial statements, but the part on page 46 and 47 about pension liability, I was wondering if you could just explain what these tables show. You know, roughly grasp it, I think, but
Let me jump there.
and I don't know if this is in the right order, if you would have talked about this before you go to the letters or not, so I apologize if I.
47. Are you talking about in the financial statements?
Well, it's exhibit D4 and D5, and they're on they're the numbered pages, the printed pages, it says 46 and 47, so I don't know.
Essentially what these are required calculations for PERS footnotes.
Mhm.
And they're actually taken, we actually have to jump through some hoops. I know Altman Rogers helped with this, and Chaz from our office. Essentially, we have, I want to say 3 or 4 different reports that we kind of grab from information between the PERS supplemental information published by the state, and then also, PERS confirmations. And essentially what this is about 5 or 6 different calculations to present information that for most people, it's really not useful or beneficial. I hate to kind of.
That's okay. I asked because there was a time when the rate was, the amount that we had to cover was super high, like 22%, I think. But maybe it's.
It's adjusted every year, they give us a new rate.
Yeah.
But ultimately, the liability here is if we had to pay 100% of what we owe on the first liability, those numbers would be reflected on the audit, right? Is that correct, Jim?
Yes. And essentially the state also kicks in, they have forever, well, I guess within the last, I want to say 17, 18 years, they provide most governments and quasi-governments a PERS on behalf payment to help get to that 22%. And realistically, this like you said on page 46, this net pension liability of $7.3 million, that's essentially if the state went bankrupt, what would be the city of Cordova's responsibility.
Okay. Thanks. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Jim, I don't know if you want to continue on, or if anyone has any other questions on the financial statements. Obviously, if there are questions, I can share his email with all of you. You can direct them to him.
Okay. Do you want to jump over to the board letter real quick? Or the management letter? Any preference to discuss either one of those?
You want to just give an overview?
Sure. Essentially, I'll go with the board letter first. Essentially, that this is standard communication. There are kind of a couple areas where we actually have to put some thought into, but essentially they're pretty well boilerplated from our governing body, saying, yeah, you need to issue this, and you need to think about what you need to put in here. The second page of that, and let me share this if I can. So it's essentially, we talk about issues within, yeah, that's what I wanted. Issues within the audit, and we talk a little bit about specific risks and you know, so we noted that you know, GASB 87 implementation, that has to do with the leases and keeping those on the balance sheet, both the asset and liability, and then bond issuance. You know, there's a little bit more risk with that than the normal audit that we run into, and then significant asset additions. You know, this year we had, I want to say, over $1 million of asset additions. And then we go down to, you know, significant accounting estimates, depreciation and allowance for doubtful accounts, and landfill, the closure costs for the landfill. These are all estimates. You know, sometimes we have to make our best guess, and when we audit this, we look at it and determine whether it's reasonable or not. I know last year we talked with Helen and ran through some calculations with Gavin for like the landfill closure costs, and we determined that these are all, the depreciation and allowance for doubtful accounts and the closure costs were all reasonable. And see, these are a couple of the items that noted during the audit. We also note if there was any significant or unusual transactions noted during the audit. There weren't any. Again, if we identified or suspected fraud, we would have noted. Actually, before you even got this letter, I would have been on the phone or on the plane talking with you folks about this, because this is one of those big red flag issues where if it's noted during the audit, essentially we stop the process and we get pretty much everybody involved from the council, from the mayor to Helen to your treasurer, let you know what we found, how we found it, and circumstances surrounding the identification of that. Corrected and uncorrected misstatements. Essentially, you know, we add this in there. Every organization that has PERS, we have this comment in there, just because it's a lot of hoops to jump through to figure out what your liability is, what your deferred inflows and outflows are on your financial statements, and correspondingly the footnotes with all the calculations. So typically we help organizations with this in preparing their financials. So consequently, we have an adjustment at year end to true up those numbers. We also have an adjustment to correct cash clearing account at year end. If I remember correctly, it wasn't material, but still felt it needed to be in the board letter. There weren't any disagreements with management, and consultation with other accountants. We noted that y'all had been using Altman Rogers and Company to assist with the preparation and the prep for the audit and the financial statements. And if you had a finding, a deficiency, a significant deficiency or material weakness, we would also note this in this section of the report, other significant matters, findings, or issues. Are there any questions regarding the governing body report?
Being none, Jim,
Okay. All right, last one I'll share then. This is the management letter that we usually send out. You know, if we identify issues or continued issues from the prior year, we like last year, excuse me, in 21, we identified, I think, 6 management letter comments. 3 of these are continuation. We eliminated 3, or Helen and our staff eliminated 3 of the comments. These are, I wouldn't say they're significant issues, but issues to be aware of. One was internal control over bank reconciliations. There were 2 accounts that they didn't have reconciliations in the accounting software. And this kind of goes with the next comment, Excel accounting software. Didn't appear that there's a huge buy-in of the folks with the software, even though I know you all made efforts this last year to get everybody up to speed on doing what they need to do within the software. And subsequently, Helen and I talked, and I guess y'all are going to be switching softwares this next year. So hopefully this will go away. And then the last one is a collateralization agreement. Essentially, banks will only insure up to $500,000 without a separate collateralization or agreement or repurchase agreement with the entity. Essentially, we put this in there. We have to put this in there to let everybody know that if the banks folded tomorrow, only X dollars of your money held with that institution would be covered by either FDIC or SPIC or some sort of other collateralization agreement. And that concludes the management letter.
All right, thank you, Jim. I don't know if there's anything else, but obviously, for anyone who has questions, that means you let me know, or reach out to Jim directly. But this audit is now closed, published, and I've already been speaking to Jim about when our next audit schedule. It was crazy, but it's that time. So thank you so much for your time tonight. I appreciate it.
Helen,
Yeah.
question, Councilman Jones.
So I actually have a question for Helen, I guess. Is there any action the council needs to take to get these recommendations? I guess, the old recommendations they found, or is that something you just do?
I can do everything there. The collateralization agreements is something that you just do with the bank.
Okay.
If I may interject real quick, usually those collateralization agreements, they're fairly expensive for what you get. So, and that's why I'm not too worried about that, because most organizations that do have this comment have already gone out and requested information from the bank, and it comes back and it's ridiculously expensive for another $1 million of coverage. And like I said, probably I would say 60 to 75% of my clients don't have separate collateralization agreements.
Thank you for that tidbit. Anything else, Helen?
The only thing I'm going to give another update. Thank you, Jim. You are free for the rest of the evening.
All right. Thank you so much. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
I just wanted to give you an update. Tonight, Colin is doing a presentation at the Science Center on the Harbor Project. So I'm going to do a quick update. Good news to report, as of last Friday, the last of all of our sticky wicket permits were approved. And so we are moving forward. It's still a federal process to go through, but we are on track. You'll notice that the harbor is getting more and more empty. We are moving vessels, moving them to the north side, moving them onto the hard. It's going to be another week or two before you really see that harbor empty out, but we're on track, and don't anticipate any more delays. So with that, I will conclude my report and thank you.
Any questions for the manager?
Yeah, I've got just one question about the harbor. Last meeting, we heard from the harbor master that the travel lift, they recommended replacing some more motors and that they were getting shipped in. Is there any update on that?
So the travel lift is operational completely. They're recommending replacement, but those things, won't appear until probably early into the new year. So we're using what we have. There's no risk, there's no indication that any of the other parts are problematic. The one that broke has been replaced. So we're moving forward with the equipment we have, and again, we will be fully replacing things when those parts become available, which is gonna be sometime, yeah.
Okay, and then I guess one more follow-up question to that. I was approached by a member in the community who was concerned about the lack of waivers. I know that the harbor has waivers. I know I signed one years ago when I first hauled my boat out, and I don't know if I ever subsequently signed another one. But I, heard over rumor mill, the boat that had the issue maybe didn't have a current waiver on file. Is that being
So
addressed?
every single vessel that's being pulled has to sign a current waiver.
Okay.
So, that is the policy, that's the practice, that is the rule, that is what we do. So,
Yeah,
Very much.
Anything else for the manager? Okay, then, on to city clerk's report.
I don't have anything specific.
Even the mayor, Donna Easy.
I'll chat it.
So that takes us to correspondence, and doesn't look like there is any. Unfinished business, we have none. New and miscellaneous business. Council action concerning Alaska Commercial Company lease, the planner. So this is Alaska Commercial request for lot 5 lease extension and amendment to add additional extensions. And we have background from the planner who I hear anything from council to Councilman Carpenter.
Yeah, I move to approve the requested 5-year extension of the existing lease, moving the lease expiration date to March 31st. Moving the lease expiration date from March 31st, 2024 to March 31st, 2029.
I'll second it.
Should we discuss one at a time, Kevin, or do you?
Yeah, since they're pretty two separate items, it would be great if we handle them separately.
Okay,
Like I said in the background of the memo, typically these renewals are administrative. This particular lease had language in it that required the council to approve the exceptions. That's why it's before you tonight.
thank you, Councilman Carpenter, to your motion.
I made the motion to put the item on the table for discussion. Obviously, this is a longstanding business member, longstanding member of our business community, and it's thought we would want to talk about it.
Councilman Rain. I'm making that, okay. Anybody else? Kenny, sorry.
So- yeah, I would, like to support the motion on the floor. And, I know there was another option of doing amending the lease to add 3 additional 5-year extensions. I would not support adding the additional extensions, so. I wouldn't support Kristen's original motion.
Yeah, that's what I was requesting, and we discussed these as two separate items.
Yeah. Okay,
You have a mic, Kenny? I can't barely hear you.
Now I do.
Thank you.
Is that better? Yeah, okay.
so should we go ahead, any more discussion on the first item, motion? Go ahead and vote on that one.
It can be a voice vote.
Oh, okay. All in favor of the motion to move to approve the requested 5-year extension of the existing lease, moving the lease expiration date to March 31st, 2024 to March 31st, 2029. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Are you an aye?
Yes, I'm an aye, sorry.
That's okay.
So much. to think about.
That motion's approved.
Okay, so do I hear a motion to bring the second item to the table? Councilman Carpenter.
I move to approve the request to amend the existing lease to add 3 additional 5-year extensions.
I'll second it.
And who you're not.
Yeah, so again, I made a motion so that we could put it on the table and talk about it. I don't have a predetermined position at the moment, but I thought we should address the businesses, we should at least address their request.
Councilman Rainey.
That's the thing, it looks like it was just an administrative cleanup on that,
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with it.
So Kevin, the way I read this is just making all their leases be timed the same, is that correct?
Yeah, that's what they're requesting. So we leased 4 properties to them under 2 separate leases. One lease is for lots 4 and 9 where the building is situated, and then the other lot is lot 8. That lease was entered into in 1993. And at that time, we had different rules in place that allowed for very long-term leases. And so, excuse me, that lease does have has potentially 15 more years in it. If they use those renewals. And so they're requesting to get the same for the lot 5 lease, I would assume, just because then it would line up, their leases, they don't have to track 2 separate leases. So I am just bringing their request forward.
So to clarify that, lot 4, lot 9, lot 8, all have that term built into it.
Yeah, they're under
The
the
additional 5 year.
They had, I think, 5, it was like, I don't remember the exact number, but basically the initial term of that lease ran out about 4 years ago or so. And so they're in the first renewal, and then they have 3 additional renewals remaining once the one that they're under is currently up. And so they wanted to bring the other lease in line, so they would all have the same number of renewals and then expire all at the same time, instead of this one expiring either. Well, now it would expire in 2029 since we just approved the extension, and then they wouldn't have to renegotiate one lease. And then a few years later, we negotiate another lease.
So adding.
So seems administrative that.
Yeah.
Yes. It's like trying to get your prescriptions all filled on the same day, which never happens. So let's go around the table, Casey.
You answered my question, I would be, it sounds like, we would never, I don't see us approving 3 and not 1 of this arrangement. It's established business. So it to me seems pretty cut and dry administrative. He's in favor of that.
Councilman Jones.
Yeah, I'm not gonna support this. I think that it was pretty intentional. The previous councils left that as a shorter term lease. Because the building's not built on it, that's a pretty relatively unused corner of their parking lot, and it could be used for a higher purpose for the community, and I don't want to see us tied up for 15 years or more. Using lot 8 as the only parking lot for this building would be more than sufficient to house the traffic that they get. And I think that lot 5 could be potentially a different business in the future, and I would like to see us not offer it up for long-term extensions. It is prime real estate in our community and Phil that we don't have a lot of, so I see it serving a higher purpose for the community than a parking lot.
Oh, these are me. I think there's other unused lots that I would look at first, but I'm gonna go ahead and support this administrative change. So roll call, Susan, or voice vote?
Either one, if you want me to do a roll, I can.
Let's do a roll.
Okay. So on the second item, the motion to amend the lease to add 3 additional 5-year extensions. We have Ann Schaefer is absent, John Baylor is absent, Kristen Carpenter,
Yes.
Kathy Sherman,
Yes.
Stacy Kinsman,
Yes.
Ken Jones,
No,
Wendy Rainey.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-1.
Just before I walk away, to speak to Ken's point, because of the way this lease is written, the council would have a decision to not approve those 3 additional renewals. So unlike the other leases, it would be a council decision. So you could still at that time choose not to do a renewal if there was other opportunities in the. So.
I guess I've got a question. We've seen it in the past where letters of interest are not submitted because it's marked as leased, not marked as available, so. You see that, like.
Well, as part of the land,
Opportunity.
as part of the land disposal update, we did change the language in both code and on the information pack that we put out that says leased properties are available for a letter of interest in the last year of their term.
Okay,
Maybe that's something that would be worth, I could look at for the coming land use update, and maybe we actually put the expiration dates for the leased properties on the land disposal map, for people to be aware of.
Yeah,
when they
that'll be
up
good,
for
yeah.
A letter.
that'd be a good
Yeah.
idea.
I would say to you, keep phone calls.
Yeah. So, anyway, just wanted to add that in.
Great, thank you. Okay, and that brings us to pending agenda, CIP list, calendar, elected and appointed officials list.
I guess I was thinking about the next work session and I wish we had talked about it at the end of the work session while Holly could give us some ideas of the timeframe. And I hate not saying it here because then you guys are like herding cats when I try and do it by email. What do you think? Do you think she'd be ready by 2 weeks so that before the next meeting?
Yeah.
Okay, and that brings us to, when is the next meeting? If you recall, we talked about how the 18th is holiday. We decided we'd do the 19th, and there's an event in here on the 19th, 20th, and 21st, and they are paying customers not really willing to move to a different location. They need this space, they need the screens and stuff. And since we're doing this now, I wanna keep this, and I wanna keep our meetings here.
Could we go to the 25th?
We could do the 18th. I mean, it says you can if it's on a holiday, but if it doesn't bother anybody that it's on a holiday, it doesn't bother me and Helen. Or we could go the day earlier on Tuesday.
I can't do Tuesday.
Okay, yeah, see, that's why Wednesdays are a win because they're carved out for us.
We do the following Wednesday.
I don't think there's an issue with the holiday unless you all want to avoid the holiday. It's up to
I
you.
won't be here, so.
What holiday is it?
Alaska Day.
Alaska Day.
I guess I wanna know, does it incur additional cost by having this on a holiday?
No.
Is there a holiday payout or
Oh,
premium or
yeah,
any
yeah,
of those
right.
things by having individuals here?
Jason will have to do the meeting instead of.
I'm just kidding, that's pure.
No, that's a good, I hadn't thought of, union staff who might be independent. So as long as we don't do that, and you don't often need any other staff.
I'd prefer to go to the 25th, but that's just because I'll be out of town on the 18th, so.
Okay, what do I have, UFA fall meeting, 25th and 26th, I'm sure that means it's,
Yeah, they can't.
right? Day or night?
I can't. It's all day.
You said they canceled.
Yeah, but they
Oh,
canceled,
no.
we switched to
Be too
online,
much to like change over.
Wait, did they just cancel? Who said they canceled?
that's what they said on their website.
Oh,
they're switching to an online Zoom meeting.
Oh, did they call you? Yeah.
Maybe they still plan to have it available for the public to walk in and Zoom here, I don't know.
Alright, well, so,
But I can make the 18th work, I'll just call them for my vote, no problem.
Kathy, are we really switching it for you?
That's okay, you don't have to, you don't have to.
I have no idea what the
I
other
won't
ones.
be in town, but I can call it.
Okay. So, and you think 5 o'clock to do the next work session also, Helen? 5 again? I mean, we used the 2 hours today.
Yep.
I agree. So we'll do the 5 o'clock.
Unless,
Let's not do that day, 'cause that's 1, 2, 3.
yeah, there's a lot of people absent, so we probably
Yeah.
should.
That's a lot.
If we can, yeah,
I wouldn't be able to call into a workshop on the 18th, because I'm gonna be out with clients, so
Okay.
I could do a meeting, but
Okay.
is there the 16th option to do that session? I don't know
I don't know if that's too little time for her to
Okay.
draft the ordinance by and maybe able to get it out
Or-
by the 13th.
23rd.
Sure.
I mean, it's nice to have it all one day. Then
Um,
done, but I mean, if nobody's around, we can.
Okay, we're gonna go with the regular meeting on the 18th.
Mhm.
And I'll talk to Holly and see, I'll see what UFA is doing for real. And whether maybe we can have the work session in here on the 5th or maybe the 24th.
I would be in favor if everything lines up, UFA on the 20, like if that's not happening, we have the 25th open for our regular meeting. And then do 2 hours before that, to Wendy's point, to just get it all out of it, take one evening.
Okay.
Well, we would-
From 5,
Oh, okay, so move the regular meeting from the 18th to the 25th, okay.
if it's available. I mean, it's something we're just gonna be corresponding on that.
I won't be here for that.
But then it's a nightmare to do meetings 2 weeks in a row. Because anything that happens on the 25th, I'm creating a packet with it by 2 days later.
So the UFA fall board meeting is the 25th and 26th. It says members are welcome to attend the fall meeting and will be able to access the meeting via Zoom. So if we're,
Looks like it's off.
it says they are welcome to attend the fall meeting.
But if they're not having it here, is it possible that they could be, can they be upstairs if they're?
Yeah,
people
we're gonna
coming
have to
here
need to confirm
replace?
if they
Yeah.
are zooming from Anchorage or here.
I mean, it sounds to me like they want a spot where people can come and join the Zoom. Here,
You can tell that from what she just read.
no, I'm looking at it.
Oh. That was hard to understand.
It says, like to Google it, it says October 25th to 26th, members are welcome to attend the fall meeting in person or can access the meeting in Zoom.
Oh, in person.
Well, that's what I got is maybe they want to have a central Zoom location for members to be able to come and Zoom in. I don't know. It's all interpretive column.
We're gonna have to.
They won't be here.
They won't,
They
be-
won't?
I just checked my emails, yeah.
they're not gonna be here.
You should be mad.
You should be mad.
Why did they cancel?
I don't know if they're board or SCP to come here.
Okay,
So do we do everything on the 25th then?
I guess if that's easiest.
Are you guys in town on the 25th?
There's a CEC board meeting on the 25th, but
There's nobody here.
nobody's on CEC. Okay, that's
So
what
they're
we're
usually upstairs, aren't they?
Are they? Yeah. I don't even know
No,
if
they're
here.
upstairs and they're upstairs. They do now, yeah.
Okay, so the 25th.
So 5 o'clock on the 25th for the work session and the meeting, like we did tonight.
Correct.
I would be in favor of that, absolutely. Obviously, there's probably some more background.
I'll get them
for Holly.
more oniony food. And we'll stay away from the chicken.
So then there's nothing on the 19th, correct?
Nothing on the 19th,
Or 18th.
just the last day.
All right. Are you good to move on?
Yes.
Okay. Anybody in the audience have any comments Those of you who have been sitting here for as many hours as us. No, okay. Council comments. Wendy, can I start with you?
I enjoyed the work session. I think it's important to take these things and break them apart and have the discussion. I remember something about exemptions being on there, so I wasn't surprised tonight, but by what we talked about. Well, I think it's important to talk about both, so I'm looking forward to another work session on the housing, on the economic development side. Thanks for putting it together, Dave. I really enjoyed your report, Dave Jenga, and I like to read those summaries. So, and thanks for the extra reading, the glossy reading if you're in. Thanks.
Kristen.
Yeah, I would say also that I appreciated the time that we dedicated to talking about the sales tax code. I think it just really helps to hash through that stuff and to really understand what effects it actually has on the people paying the tax, the people collecting it. And I also, this is not exactly a council thing, but we talked about it at one of our meetings. We talked about the things that management that was causing a lot of challenges at the post office, and that has changed. But what has not changed is that all of our local mail is going to Anchorage and coming back. So if people want to comment on that, you can use that. There's a little URL address on the bottom of your postal receipt. We can also use the emails that we got previously from the mayor, but I think it would be great because that just seems like an enormous waste of resources to be shipping all of our local mail to Anchorage and then having it come back. So anyway,
You used to be able to take it to the counter
you can take it to the
and
counter,
then they keep it in-house.
right?
But
But
anything in the Dropbox
right, it goes to Anchorage.
goes to Anchorage.
Yeah.
Even if it says in
Mhm.
community, that's.
Yeah.
A
Yeah.
pointless box to have
Right.
that, because I thought that was someone explained to me that was the word.
Well, it used to be that way, and then the previous postmaster changed it, but now we have to get it changed back if we want it to be different.
They
So,
took that local mail label down.
I saw that.
Doesn't say that.
yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
so I think that'd be worth commenting on if people get a chance. I know it just, it makes no sense, but.
That's why all my birthday cards were late.
And this is not really city council related, but as we're losing light, it's something that I see sometimes when I'm out running. I would encourage people to walk facing traffic. If you see people out there, you know, when you walking with the traffic and it's dark out and you're wearing dark clothing, it's really hard to see
Wear
people.
something reflective.
And wear something,
Wearing black rain gear on Orca Road, where
Right.
there's no lights, it's
Right.
awful.
yeah, so anyway, I just set that out there. Thank you. Thank you, yeah. Councilman.
No,
Councilman, thanks, Ben.
Yeah, the work session was, I felt, for me, a good use of time, so thank you, I appreciate everyone's time. I appreciate actually some of the history behind some of those things, helping me understand it, and of course, help me understand that some of the things just needed to get, like travel agency exception. Very good. I would, and I plan on, maybe we can talk about this a little more at another meeting, but I believe there was a correspondence from Milo about our bear and landfill issue that we have. I think it's an opportunity for us to be proactive on. I really would hate for us to be put in a position to wait for something to get mauled out there. And then we're trying to scramble and get a fence and come up with funding and how we're gonna do that, except what our mitigation would be. I mean, at that point, we'd take it seriously. At that point, you know, after we have litigation, we're liable as a community. Then we're gonna go and try to be retroactive. So I think there's a real opportunity for us to be proactive out there and make something hopefully sustainable out there. And but so yeah, get that fenced in. And I know there's different topics on it, different options on it. I don't profess to know any of the options, but I think there's an opportunity for us. And then just if I could, anyone who is listening, whoever's out there, we're coming to budget cycle, we're doing some talks on sales tax and economic development. This is a great opportunity for the public to get involved and let us know what you want to see. We're putting the work in now, and this is the best time to comment on that before the work is done, and then you come in and have lots of comments on what you want to see removed out of there, and then we're back to the drawing board. So please get involved, and even if that's not attending, if that's emails to, the city clerk and so on, so, we know what you're thinking. Other than that, that's all I have. Thank you.
Um, I just have a couple of things. I was just thinking, before I retired, I did have a file on grants potentially for bear fencing at the landfill. So I'll find that file.
Fantastic.
I really wanted to applaud DMV because they were really helpful to my husband and I this week, and the service down there has just been great. And I love the appointment scheduler. Dixon was very impressed that I made the appointment for him. And Dave Jenka, thank you for the RCA reports, RCAC. I read them all and I appreciate being kept up to date on everything. And Kevin, I really appreciated your help tonight with all the issues we had on the table, so. Yeah, and the work session was useful. I did not know there were things on there like yeah, travel agent. I've been doing that for people and I could have been tax exempt. Mayor Allison, do you have any comments? Or did we lose you?
We may have.
Okay. And Helen, is there a need for an executive session?
Yes, there is.
So do I have a motion for executive session? Let's see.
I move that we move into executive session to talk about recommendations from the city manager regarding collective bargaining negotiations, a subject which is a matter of immediate knowledge of which would clearly have an adverse effect upon the finances of the city government.
Okay. And with that,
No objection to that.
if there are no objections, we'll go into executive session.
Couple minute recess to.
Yes. Yes.
You go.